Grandpa Wisdom Story, The Secret to Happiness, a Biblical Reflection. The crackling fire sent warm sparks into the cool evening air, grandkids with questions and Grandpa giving answers in our instruction book. Owl and Bigfoot family listening in, somewhere in the woods, I'm sure. They said, "Grandpa, what is the secret to being happy?" Well, he said we have covered many ways in past videos, but let's just concentrate on what the Bible, given to us by our Creator, has to say. The wind whispered softly through the tall trees surrounding the cabin. The stars were just beginning to sparkle through the dusky sky. Grandpa leaned back in his comfortable chair and looked around at the curious eyes glowing in the firelight. "You ever wonder what it means to be happy?" Grandpa began, his voice low and thoughtful. Not the kind of happy that comes from opening a gift or winning a prize, but that deep, peaceful kind of happiness, the kind that lasts. The fire popped again, and even the owl in the tree above gave a hoot as if to say he was listening. Also, "You know," Grandpa said, poking the fire with a stick, "a long time ago, before fancy toys and phones, people lived closer to the land, closer to their Creator. And do you know what He gave them? He gave them the secret to happiness, right in the heart of the Old and then the New Testament, right in His instructions to His people. God wants us to be happy." He paused and looked up. "Let me tell you what the Creator shared. God's feasts, Leviticus 23. In the book of Leviticus chapter 23, the Creator set out something really special. Festivals, holy days, times of gathering, remembering, celebrating, and being thankful. He said things like, "You shall rejoice before the Lord your God," Leviticus 23:40. Imagine that. Being told not just to remember Him, but to rejoice. Verse 43, it says, "So that your generations may know." That sounds like forever. Generations do not stop, they keep growing. Verse 41 says, "A statute in your generations forever." They were harvest festivals for first fruits which have deeper meaning, to bring in the first fruits of the land and give thanks. There was a festival called the Feast of Tabernacles. Even Jesus observed these feast days in the New Testament. The indications and descriptions show Jesus was probably even born during the Feast of Tabernacles. It was a time that represents God's kingdom, where families would live in temporary shelters and celebrate the blessings of the year. It wasn't about things, it was about being thankful, together. That's one secret of happiness. Gratitude, being thankful for what we have, right now. Not always chasing what we don't have. God said to share His feasts throughout all our generations forever. Wouldn't that apply to all over the world? Living right. The 10 Commandments. Grandpa leaned forward and spoke more softly. Now another secret is found in the 10 Commandments. People think of them as rules, but they're more than that. They're a guide to joyful living. As we have discussed in past videos, he held up his fingers, slowly counting. When we honor our parents, we find peace in our homes. When we don't steal, lie, or covet, we live without guilt or jealousy. When we rest on the Sabbath, like the 4th commandment says, we slow down, breathe, and enjoy what we've been given. The Creator didn't make these laws to weigh us down. He gave them to lift us up, to free us from the chaos of doing everything our own way. He smiled. That's another secret of happiness. Living right, the way the Creator intended. It brings peace in our hearts, peace with others, and peace with Him. Enjoying what we have. Ecclesiastes 3. Now listen to this, Grandpa said, going to the instruction book. There is a time for everything. Verse 12 and 13. I know that there is nothing better for them than to rejoice and to do good as they live. Moreover, that every man who eats and drinks sees good in all his labor. It is the gift of God. Happiness personified. That means enjoying a meal, doing good work, laughing together. That's not just okay. That's a gift. We don't need to wait for someday. We can find happiness right now. The heart of the secret Grandpa's voice lowered, thoughtful again. So what's the secret to happiness? He held up 3 fingers. 1. Gratitude. Be thankful like they were during the feasts. Enjoy the blessings, not just the big ones, but the little ones. 2. Obedience. Walk in the Creator's ways, be honest, kind, respectful. It brings a clear mind and a joyful heart. 3. Contentment. Don't chase after everything. Enjoy the food on your table, the people around you, and the work of your hands. He looked at the fire and whispered, "That's the happiness the Creator always wanted for His children." For a long moment, no one said anything. The wind rustled the leaves and the fire danced its orange and gold. Then Grandpa smiled. Let's never forget that real happiness doesn't come from the world. It comes from living the way the Creator intended, from His law, written not just on stone, but as the New Testament says, on our hearts. Here are some scriptures you can look up when you get home. Psalm 1:1 and 2. Blessed is the one whose delight is in the law of the Lord. Psalm 16:11. You will make known to me the path of life. Deuteronomy 28:1-3. All these blessings shall come upon you and overtake you. Exodus 20, the 10 Commandments. Proverbs 17:22. A joyful heart is good medicine. You can look these up, but let's take a look at some New Testament examples. New Testament. From the law to love. The fire crackled low as the embers glowed beneath the open sky. The soft night sounds rose from the edges of the forest, and the stars seemed to be in deep thought overhead. Grandpa gently placed another log onto the fire, and the flames rose up, casting flickers of light on his face. Grandpa said, "We talked about the happiness the Creator gave through His commands, through feast days, rest, gratitude, and living right. Now let's look at what Jesus continued." He paused, watching the fire. But you know, the story didn't end there. The Creator had something even more powerful in store, something that would take the joy from the law and bring it even closer to the heart. From the law to the heart, the fulfillment of happiness. You see, Grandpa said, poking the fire, in the Old Testament, the commandments were written on stone, but in the New Testament, they are written on our hearts. He opened his instruction book and read softly, "This is the covenant I will establish with them. I will give my laws into their hearts, and I will inscribe them in their minds." Hebrews 10:16, echoing Jeremiah 31:33. That means we don't just obey because we're told. We obey because we want to, because it brings joy and peace. He looked up and smiled. The real secret to happiness, the kind that lasts, is when our hearts are in line with what the Creator always intended. The happiness Jesus taught. Jesus didn't throw away the commandments, Grandpa said firmly. He fulfilled them. He taught us how to live them from the heart. In fact, he said in Matthew 5:17, "Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I did not come to abolish but to fulfill." He took the command not to murder and said, "Don't even hate in your heart." He took the command not to commit adultery and said, "Don't even look with lust." That's the deep happiness of a pure heart. He nodded. Jesus taught that happiness comes from the inside out. Then Grandpa opened again to the Beatitudes, reading slowly. Matthew 5:3-10. Our happiness lies here. Joy through obedience and love. Jesus said in John 15:10-11, "If you keep my commandments, you shall live in my love. I have told you this so that my joy may dwell in you and that your joy may be complete." Grandpa smiled, tapping the verse with his finger. There it is. He connects commandments with joy. It's the same joy from the Old Testament, but deeper. Because now it's not just about rules. It's about relationships, the fruits of the Spirit. And here's another. Grandpa said, turning to Galatians 5:22-23. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, meekness, and self-control. When we live by God's Spirit, when we walk the way Jesus walked, our lives begin to bear fruit, and joy is right at the top of that list. He leaned back and whispered, "That's what happiness looks like when it's in you." Old Testament roots, New Testament fulfillment. Now, Grandpa continued, some people think the Old and New Testaments are two different stories, but they're really one big story. The festivals of God in Leviticus, Jesus observed them, and the apostles. The 10 Commandments, Jesus lived them and showed us how to live them with love. The joy of the harvest, Jesus said the harvest is people, gathered into the family of God. The final joy, a promise of eternal happiness. And let me tell you one more secret, Grandpa said, his voice soft. All this joy we taste now is just a glimpse. The real happiness is still coming. He read from Revelation 21:3-4. Tabernacle of God is with men. He will wipe away every tear. There will be no more death or sorrow or crying or pain. That's where this whole story leads. From the garden, to the mountain, to the cross, to the kingdom. Eternal joy, and it all starts by walking in His ways. Now, like, subscribe, and share. Let's share with the world and honor our Creator. So if you ever wonder where happiness comes from, real happiness, it's not in stuff or success or being liked. It's in loving the Creator, keeping His ways, and letting His joy live in you. He paused and smiled gently. Now that is a secret worth remembering.